Hey guys, it's Shnickerman here back with another video. I'm going to start a new video series where I look at a series of games, analyze their prices, and try to come up with reasons why these price trends might be happening, and just spur interesting conversation with the community. Today I'm going to talk about Shantae, the video game series. Shantae has actually been around for a long time and spans multiple games across various systems. Today we're going to ask ourselves the question of why is Shantae popular and why do the games hold their value extremely well, especially when sealed? Shantae is a platforming series. It also takes a lot of cues from early Mega Man games, Metroid games, Castlevania games, and even Monster Boy games. Where you kind of start in this town area and you start with only your basic attack. Over time you can upgrade your basic attack, get different activated abilities which can do damage or shield you, buy potions, and you just explore this map. Eventually you can also get different forms that you can change into that allow you to access new areas. So you have to do a lot of backtracking and go to these new areas that you can now reach in order to complete the game. Shantae is a video game series that the first game was released on June 2nd, 2002 under the name Shantae. It was a very late release in the Game Boy Color's life cycle. So for that reason, it did not sell very well, and it became very rare because it was only a small production number, and later people realized that the game was really fun, so it became kind of a hidden gem and a very hard game to track down. To date, there are 5 different Shantae games: the original Shantae, Shantae Risky's Revenge, which came out in 2010, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which came out in 2014, Shantae Half-Genie Hero, which came out in 2016, and Shantae and the 7 Sirens, which came out in 2019 and for a wide release in 2020. Although the original game was very popular after its release, it took from 2002 all the way to 2010 for a second Shantae game to be released. The original Shantae game came out for Game Boy Color, and by the time Shantae Risky's Revenge came out, it was released for the Nintendo DSi. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse was released on the Nintendo 3DS, so you can see that the first 3 games were all Nintendo exclusives. However, all 5 games in the series were eventually ported to other systems. So let's take a look at the price history for the original Shantae game. Here I'm having to look at loose because for some reason Complete in Box and New don't have enough information about their sales for a long period of time. So let's see. The second Shantae came out around 2010, but it was announced around this time in 2019. You can see this huge spike in the loose price by almost threefold. Then the third release Shantae game happens around here or so, which you can see the price is relatively steady for a little while, then spikes up a bit over here. This could be some natural increase with the prices over time, but I don't know. Half-Genie Hero came out around this time. Not too much fluctuation here. And then around the time when the most recent Shantae game came out and was announced, you can see this huge shift in prices, and that's not even counting the pandemic. The pandemic doesn't happen until about here, and then of course with the pandemic you see the prices rise even more. But I thought this was pretty interesting. So each consecutive release of Shantae affects the previous releases. One aspect of the Shantae series that I think makes it so collectible is that most of the releases are small print runs with a few exceptions. The original Shantae game on Game Boy Color was, as I mentioned, a very limited release. The first 2 games didn't have a very widespread release. Later on, Limited Run Games decided to re-release the game on either Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 4 or both. Because of this reason, there are already fewer copies in circulation. Risky's Revenge is an interesting one as well. This was a limited run game release. You can see for Complete in Box it's pretty much stayed steady. Since there's a limited supply, yeah, it increased when the newest game came out, but then it kind of came back to where it was For new copies, same kind of thing, stays pretty constant, increases around the time the new Shantae gets announced / releases, goes back down. However, Switch version has been holding steady for complete in box, new in box, same thing. It's really these Switch collector's editions that are going crazy right now. So these ones, they're just not so much information, they're just only been released recently. So we don't have too many data points here, but it is pretty high. Shantae just remains a very collectible series. There are only 5 games in the series, and except for the first game, they're all fairly recent. So a lot of collectors like to have every entry in the series. They also, however, like to have them on the same console most of the time. Up to this point, PlayStation 4, you could get 4 out of the 5 games. And now, with the original Shantae being released on the Switch, now the Switch, I believe, is the only console that you can get all 5 games on. PlayStation 4 collectors will have to deal with having 4 on PlayStation 4 and the original Shantae game on Game Boy Color, if they so choose, or Switch. But let's, for example, take a look at the Switch release. Here you can see the new in-box price kind of steadies around $60. Then for whatever reason, earlier this year, again, I think around the time when people realized that the new Shantae game for Switch was coming out, you can see the price shift up a crazy amount of money, and now it hovers around $300 for a new copy, which I think this is insane. Let's see if complete in box, so kind of same trend here for complete in box, stays around the same, getting closer to the time the new Shantae is coming out, and just Switch collecting is really going crazy. You can see even $200 for a completing box copy of Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. And the next Shantae release is also pretty interesting, because this is the only Shantae game recently that's actually had a widespread release. So this was released as a GameStop exclusive, I believe. So you can see the PS4 version. Completing box copies are pretty much the same around the pandemic time. They do increase a little bit, but you're only really talking $10 or so for complete in box. For new, hold steady, pandemic, boom, increases. Still relatively fine though, about double or almost triple increase in price even for a new copy. Steadies out a little bit better. So this is kind of expected. For comparison, let's look at Vita as well for complete in box. This pretty much stays the same, increases a little bit around the pandemic time, but not too much. And then brand new copy increases in the pandemic, but again, not by too much. So it's pretty interesting. You can see now for the Switch version, almost a decrease in price, like it was really inflated. Here it goes up a little bit and comes back down. There's just not a lot of information about this since it's a newer release. And then you look at the collector's edition, you can see a huge increase in price for this one for complete in box. And for new, same trend. Now let's take a look at the newly released 7 Sirens. There's not a lot of data points here. This game was pretty much just released recently, so there's not really too much information here, but you can see for the Switch version of this, the prices are all way over the limited run game release price. The first 2 games have a really nice 8-bit to 16-bit style. One thing across all of the Shantae games is that the soundtracks are really, really good, and the gameplay is very solid. I guess it's not necessarily a surprise that these games are so loved and sought after for collectors. When limited run games produces physical editions of these Shantae games, they usually release them with 3 or 4 different cards. And with these cards, you can see obviously there's nice illustrations of some artwork from the game, but these cards maintain value and have higher prices than pretty much all the rest of the limited run game cards. And you can take that as you will, but again, it just shows the collectability of this series and the passion that people have about this series in general. Because if people didn't care about this series, the cards would be a few dollars each just like the rest. But the Shantae series has a premium price for even these limited run game cards. So thanks for watching. If you like Shantae games or you want to see other series get the same treatment as this video, please tell your friends, like the video. If you have any feedback on the series of things you want to see in the future, please let me know in the comments. I read every single comment. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.